have stuff, so just give me a second till I get ready here. My mantra in life is, here's your cancer, keep the change. Any of you who have been through cancer, and a lot of us have, you know that cancer comes with change. We can embrace it, we can make it a good thing. When I was first diagnosed, people would say to me, don't you just want things to be the way they were before? And initially I was saying, yeah, I do. But then I realized, ain't gonna happen, and it doesn't have to happen. I believe that cancer is not only about death, and unfortunately it is sometimes and more often than we'd like about death. It is also about the doorway that is flung wide open for us. My mother and I were diagnosed with breast cancer at exactly the same time, literally within days of each other. My mother unfortunately passed away 11 months later, and I believe to this day that my mother is still opening doors for me to continue on my journey. There had been a horrific history of breast cancer in our family, and little did I know the extent to which it would change my own life. When I battled breast cancer the first time, it was January of 1992. And I had what I affectionately called my big job at the bell. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. And I thought I had it all. I had my big job, I'd raised a wonderful son, wonderful family and friends, and then I found a lump in my breast. And I know when I say that, many of you can kind of conjure up exactly what that felt like for you. By the end of January, Mom and I had both been through surgery. The results were very different. I had what at the time was called, and I thought it was an oxymoron, it was called a simple lumpectomy. Like there's any such thing as a simple anything when it relates to cancer. But I would later learn, in fact, how simple that lumpectomy had been. My mother had a mastectomy of one breast, a partial mastectomy of the other, and at the end of her surgery day, we were told that indeed she was full of cancer. So my mother and I were that cancer team caught in that cancer web, mother and daughter. I took radiation treatments downtown Toronto at Princess Margaret in the morning so that I could drive to Scarborough, for those of you from the area and know Toronto, pick up my mother and take her to Sunnybrook for her treatment in the afternoon. We learned to embrace what I call the black humor that exists within the cancer world. As you know, we say things to each other that we would never say to somebody who hasn't been through it, right? I can see you kind of nodding your heads. There's something about the connectivity between cancer survivors. We laugh together, we have those pity parties together, and they are important. Have your pity parties on the days that you want to just grovel and cry and feel sorry for yourself. Do it, because if you have your pity parties, if you allow yourself the lows, I suggest to you that your highs will be even higher. You will have an even greater opportunity to experience highs. Mom and I had many highs and many lows. We were trying to eat better. I promised my then boyfriend that I would not go to McDonald's anymore, for example. And on Friday afternoons, my mom and I would sneak. We would actually go out of the city limits so we wouldn't get caught. And we'd go to McDonald's to have fries. And I remember one day my mother saying to me, you know, I bet we have been zapped more than any French fry in this restaurant. People need to just leave us alone. And until the day my mother passed away, we shared humor, we told great stories, and I kind of try to conjure those stories up now. I'll tell you a funny story about mother in a few minutes, which helps me to remember my mother and all mothers fondly. In the latest book that I've written, the one that you heard about, If I Knew Then What I Know Now, the picture on the cover of this book was taken in Thunder Bay, Ontario in the fall of 2007. And the reason I chose it for the cover, I see I was wearing the same jacket. I have changed my clothes since then. Just thought of that. That's a bad thing, I must say. I had my fist in the air, and I was just telling the Thunder Bay audience that I was this close to being a 16-year cancer survivor. And the picture is a reminder to me that we never know what tomorrow will bring. The 16 years didn't happen. I was diagnosed with breast cancer again, And in March of 2008, my simple lumpectomy was made very clear to me because I had to have a mastectomy. And for those of you who have been through that, you know how difficult that can be for us as well. So I had 2 experiences under my belt. Skin cancer, as you know, in fact, what you don't know is just a few weeks ago, I had the first skin cancer was in this area. A couple weeks ago, another spot up here, and I'm just waiting for the results, but I'm pretty sure it's not cancer. So I live my life at a time that I call half-past cancer, and I've written in both books about the things that I find interesting that people say when they come to visit someone who has cancer. We now know what to say and what not to say, but how many times have you had that experience where someone calls you? In my case, they'd call and say, Carol Ann, my God, I hear you just were diagnosed with cancer again. How are you doing? And before I get a chance to tell them, they interrupt with, yeah, well, you know what happened to me? And you want to say, hang on, this is not about you. So I tried to outline some of those stories. I'm going to cover with you, don't try to follow on the sheet that you have. I won't necessarily go in the same order. That's for you to take home with you if you'd like to have some of the lessons that I've learned. There are always consequences as a result of our actions. I, for example, became a workaholic. Then I became a vice president. Then I became a cancer survivor. Coincidence? Yeah, I think so, to some degree. I have learned to care from my heart and to show my soft side. When I was in the middle of my corporate climb with Bell Canada, soft skills were thought to be a woman's issue, not something that companies hired for, and not something that bosses really cared about. In fact, the president of Bell, I always prided myself in trying to learn the names of all of my employees. And the president of Bell said to me one day, you know, Carol Ann, the guys don't care what you call them as long as you pay them every second Wednesday. That was not true. They care very much what you call them. Use names when you can. That's a powerful soft skill. The soft skills today are skills that companies are, in fact, hiring for. Go wherever you want, but never go where guilt lives. We women do guilt very well, as you know. Learn to forgive. Hating only hurts the hater. If you're holding a grudge about someone, it doesn't really bother them in most cases. It bothers you. Let go of it. I have learned to respect the quality of quiet. We do not listen often enough. Some people find it easier to live with sound than with silence, and it's something we need to work on. I have learned that a simple pat on the back can speak volumes. You can be working with someone who's had a particularly bad day, and you haven't had a chance to even say hello to them. When you leave at day's end, if you just pat them on the back, you've made them feel better. It's a huge gift that we can pass on to other people. I have learned to slow dance. There are 2 poems that I'm going to share with you, and slow dance is one of them, and I'm just going to share part of it with you. The 2 poems that I'll share are on my website. I'm easy to find. It's carolannecole.com. My blog is there, and the poems that I'll share with you are there. Slow dance goes a little bit like this. Have you ever watched kids on a merry-go-round or listened to the rain slapping on the ground? Ever followed a butterfly's erratic flight or gazed at the sun fading into the night? You better slow down. Don't dance so fast. Time is short. The music won't last. Do you run through each day, always on the fly? When you ask, how are you? Do you hear the reply? When the day is done, do you lie in your bed with the next 1,000 chores running through your head? Ever told your child, we'll do that tomorrow, but in your haste not seen the sorrow? Ever lost touch, let a good friendship die because you didn't make time to call and say hi? When you run so fast to get somewhere, you miss half the fun of getting there. When you worry and hurry throughout each day, it's like an unopened gift that you've thrown away. Life is not a race, so take it slower and hear the music before the dance is over.